Welcome again to another episode of Upon Further Review, week number 8. And this is the Upon Further Review show where we review, preview, and crown a player of the week and some honorable mentions and maybe even some plus things this week as well as we get things started here. Ray Halbrook from Live Stream STL. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate that. And our Upon Further Review cast to the middle here, Matt Bates, all the way on the end here, Jeffrey Whitener. And we're going to get things started right away with our week number 8 results. They are as follows. Festus 41, Farmington 36, great game. Herculaneum 16, Perryville 13, another great game. St. Pius X from Kansas City, 48. St. Pius X from Festus, 20. Sackman 54. Hazelwood West 12, Parkway North 35, Fox 12, Northwest 62, Parkway Central 9, St. Genevieve 55, Jefferson 14, St. Vincent 44, Grandview 12, Cuba 48, Bayless 20, Scotland County 52, Crystal City 30, Chaminade 42, Hillsborough 7, Potosi 40, DeSoto 14, Fredericktown 39, Windsor 22, and Thursday night we had a North County 24, St. Clair 14 score, and that is a ton of games there, but we're going to get things rolling here. Let's talk about that first game between Festus and Farmington. What a game. To me, it was one of those instant classics that you dream and you read about, and you hope that you see more and more of those. But, man, it was a great come-from-behind win for the Festus Tigers. And, Matt, you've got some things to say about that?
I mean, really, again, it's as we say, week in, week out, that, I to me, halftime is a thing. And I think that was the best thing that happened to Festus. I mean, they finished the first half strong with a score that I think you got some momentum going into the locker room at halftime. But I'm sure Coach Fadele and all the boys will tell you that 99% of that first half, they would like to turn the page on. And I think that's what they talked about at halftime, because the penalties, the turnovers, this was, to me, it seemed like Festus was still reeling from the loss the week prior. They came out, to me, it looked relatively flat. Farmington, though, as we always talk about, though, took advantage of turnovers. They took advantage of penalties, special teams. Anything that Festus gave them, unlike teams that have played Festus prior, they weren't able to put points up. Farmington did. And I think that sent Festus back on their heels a little bit. But again, got to halftime, talk about some things, go over some things. And then the Parker Perry show turned on again. I mean, 5 throwing TDs, and he showed once again that, even facing adversity, he still reels off 35 consecutive points and gets his team back into the ring again. And I think that, a great job by a couple of running backs there with Lawante Williams, and you got Camden Yates again back again. But quietly, Parker Perry is just doing Parker Perry things, like 75% completion rate. And because when he's on, he's on. And I think that's what led the troops back.
Matt, that final touchdown that Festus scored was a perfect example of what Parker Perry can do for your offense and do for the Tiger offense. The poise that young man has and the pocket presence to be able to step up, evade the rush, and find the open man in the end zone. In that case, that's just an example of what he can do. Now, Festus has been blessed with some great quarterbacks the last 5 or 6 seasons. Last couple of years, they've had great athletes who also happen to be great quarterbacks. So they were like fantastic athletes first, maybe, and then great quarterback
Right.
also.
Yeah.
I look at Parker Perry as more of a prototypical, maybe older school type quarterback first, then athlete. That's not saying that Parker Perry is not an athlete.
Right.
He is. The other thing I wanted to mention with Festus, and I talked about this on the post-game show Friday night, is it had been the MO for the last few years, prior to last year really, that Festus always started slow and had to come back, make some adjustments, come back in the second half. And last year they avoided that, and they have avoided that for the most part this season as well. So this was kind of a reminder for the Tigers. They cannot start out and play undisciplined, have the penalties, especially if they want to move forward, and especially with who they have next week.
Yeah. piggyback real quick on the Parker Perry scenario that, you can have a pocket passer that's comfortable back there. His poise is that if he's under duress, doesn't panic when he has to break the pocket. And to me, that's another dynamic that separates him in the area and even up into St. Louis as well, too. I mean, like 146 passing attempts and finally throws his first INT to go along with the 28 touchdowns on the year. My God, what a year. And again, I think that's somebody that quietly, I don't know what he's like in the locker room, but I would have to say now going into your senior year, be on the lookout for a Parker Perry explosion, because you're going to have two people that you're going to be talking about next year, and that's going to be Cohen Stark and Parker Perry.
Exactly.
I'll piggyback off the piggyback here.
Okay.
So, being there, we've covered a ton of Festus here, and we appreciate the coverage to be able to do that. But, this particular game, late in, I believe it was in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, probably in the fourth quarter now that I think about it, because that was really pretty much when Festus really kind of hit that next gear, to where we just kind of saw a little bit of an attitude out of Parker Perry in a good way, and being able to say, okay, not only have I been the guy that's been kind of, navigating this crew, but I'm going to lead the charge here. Late in that third quarter, early fourth quarter, I saw something out of Parker Perry that I hadn't seen in the entire season. And it was just that, okay, I'm going to carry my team on my back and be able to, help pull off this come from behind win. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was just a ton of poise, a ton of just impressive, leadership in general.
And Festus really hasn't had to show much of that during the season as well.
Yeah, you're right.
But when you saw where it needed to be brought out, Parker stepped up to the forefront. And I think to that point is very accurate that Festus, I'm not saying they blew through their schedule, because it was a very tough schedule.
Sure.
But the way they handled business,
you
didn't know he had that in his back pocket, and it, in spades against Farmington. That was a heck of an effort. And real quick, Rowan Stuckey, Stuka, the last play in the end zone, when they went to McCarthy in the end zone, was able to get the hand up to knock it out. Just don't want that to go unnoticed. That was a heck of an effort by Rowan Stuka on that last play.
There you go.
Reminiscent of the state game last year against Warrenton.
Yes.
The last play of the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on here to our live stream STL2 game of the week. We have Herculaneum in Perryville. Jeff has some coverage on that, and I'll tell you what, man, an impressive game. Why is it that Herculaneum, to me, and this is just personally for me, so the views of Ray Halbrook are necessarily the views of live stream STL since I'm the owner, but going into that, seeing how they played against St. Vincent and then how they play against Perryville. They have played up to their, to me, their caliber of the last 3 or 4 years. And then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, how do they find that type of gear, against, a better team on paper? To me, that's the situation, but, just an impressive win overall for Herky.
Blaine Boss on the post-game show last week talked about how he stressed this season doing the very minute details and doing them correctly, and how those things would compound on themselves and build into a winning program. And this year, he's got the guys, the type of character athletes that can do that, both on offense and defense. And kudos to an incredible defensive effort in this game for the Black Cats. We'll talk about it here in a minute, but the individual players as far as what they did, but to be able to hold Perryville in their offense to just 13 points in that game, and with Cade Lucky, with a Barrett Wheeler, and what they can do, and just a very explosive team. I tell you what, that was just a heck of a performance overall. I'll let you Herky guys talk more about it.
Well, and they also have Drew Leichel, who committed to Western Illinois University as well, too. That they're another team that up and down. You would think that with the skill set that they bring out week after week, you would see probably a more dominant Perryville team. And for me, I just kind of scratch my head with, again, the manpower that they have. Great job by Herculaneum. struck off again, reared his ugly head, and just had him a beast of a game. 10 total tackles is what they have. Flips over on the offensive side, and I still think some of those numbers are a little muckety right now, but they have him like at 118 rush yards, 2 TDs, and the 2-point conversion, along with an interception. But I think he should still have 72 yards on that hook and ladder TD that they ran. And it's funny how you can tie like almost certain points of that game to one specific moment. And it's the INT that Clark had. They turn around, and on that drive, he puts up the first touchdown, gets the 2-point conversion, which actually was the second 2-point conversion because the officials, because Reeves is so outstanding on his fakes that he just went off dancing into the end zone. The refs had blown it dead. And then they ran into this awkward situation, kind of like that Auburn Georgia game where, I'm not calling a timeout. I'm clapping. What do we do? Oh, well, let's just replay life.
Wow.
And kind of like forget it never happened. And that's essentially what they did. They're like, okay, well, sorry, we messed up. Okay, do it again. Really?
Right.
Like
right.
you couldn't admit your gaffe, just call it a 2-point conversion because you're the one that blew the whistle early, even though.
Right.
And so, but I got to say they were able to overcome some of those because there was some obvious horse collar tackles, out of bounds hits that Perryville was playing a lot after the whistle, not just so much up to it. Gavin Feltman, what a great game he had on defense. And again, another case where you can pinpoint where the possession that Perryville had in that third or second quarter, second down, he has a sack. Third down, has a tackle for loss. Perryville now has to punt. Second play on that Hercules possessions when Herculaneum runs that hook and ladder play. So great job again by that Herculaneum defense. I mean, they stood staunch against a tough Perryville team, and I would like to see just the final stats. What not only what did they hold Perryville to, but what they held Wheeler to as well, because they seemed to have him in check all night.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our live stream STL3 game. That is the St. Pius X Kansas City 48 over the St. Pius X Festus team 48-20. And, knowing what I knew kind of going into this particular game here, I knew, what was really cool about it. I was given some information from the athletic director over there, Tilden Watson, which, by the way, thank you so much for sending that really cool thing that they did with St. Pius X over there in Kansas City. They had a 100-year celebration because they apparently have played each other in the past. And it was such a really neat situation where they were able to pull off a soccer game at 3:00. Then the football game at 7. So, which, by the way, Kansas City won both of those. But it was to me, I thought it was an amazing gesture to be able to pull off something like that. But but anyway,
I mentioned that in the broadcast, and I thought that was kind of cool too. That, but man, oh man, a Class 5 team coming in from Kansas City, and you have St. Pius stuck in there at Class 2, and they were just able to just kind of just show what manpower can do at a higher class. And I think that, to me, that's what stood out.
The offensive line for St. Pius Kansas City really stood out for me, being able to blow people off the ball. You've got several guys on that roster, offense and defense, for St. Pius Kansas City that are getting legitimate D1 offers and visits right now. And I could see that.
I was thinking it looked like it. Yeah.
After we didn't know a lot about them coming in, but we sure do now, and we can see why that's justified as well. But I mean, give St. Pius Festus credit. I mean, they were gamers all night long. Your Cody Shavers, those types of guys. They never quit. They played all night long, and they were able to get some points there at the end of the game, and get off the schneid there, the shutout. But they've got another tough opponent next week, St. Pius is, and we'll talk about that here in a second.
Yeah, Shaver, 23 carries, $190 a TD, 9 tackles. But, I mean, that's pretty much the tough night that everybody in a Lancer uniform had up and down. I got to say, though, seeing them up close, personal for this game here, really run an odd formation where, a Lee Freeman team's going to run, right. But he still has at least a wide receiver or two out in his packages. Coach Ray, I mean, they don't have a wide receiver like most of the game that they would line up independently where they're just telling you we are going to run.
It's the package.
And that kind of just caught me off guard a little bit because, I mean, you specifically know what's going to be coming down, and now it's just, can you stop it? So I thought that scheme was kind of odd, caught me off just a touch, but,
Yeah.
I guess if it works for you, it works. So,
Right. To me, I think, what we're seeing, especially in Jefferson County as a whole, these smaller schools especially, are finding teams to play against on purpose to play up. They know that they may get pounded on a little bit, but, it's going to make us better in the long run. You set yourself up for districts, you set yourself up for the playoffs, and you hope that it kind of pans out. It has panned out for some of the schools lately. I'll use last season. Crystal City made an amazingly deep run. Jefferson's made deep runs. Teams like that, and St. Vincent goes all the way to state championship, loses, but it's because they're playing teams that that you would never match up against
right.
in your class. But hey, we're going to do it anyway. So it's it's a testament to, okay, courage, yes, and a little bit of insanity, but at the same time, it's like, hey, at the end of the day, we're going to be a better team in the long run.
Well, that was the stuff that Jeff and I we were talking about before the show. That yes, this is Class 2 playing Class 5, but sometimes that's why I think you've got a Festus playing a Jackson this week.
Right.
You need to get a little bit of that toughness game. Playing with some of the bigger boys to get you battle ready. I mean, you could load up powder puffs on your schedule, but that's not going to do anything
make it better
for you.
Mm-mm.
Because come week 10, if you're not as battle tested as you need to be, that's going to show in your final product.
Absolutely.
Right. Kudos to a lot of these teams. Festus Hillsborough, as we talked about, perfect examples of two teams that have scheduled some very strong larger school opponents. And I think it's benefited both programs, especially as you said, you want to make a deep run in through the district and get to advance to the state. You have to have a battle hardened team who is used to that type of game.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our results again here. Any of these other games that were non-live stream STL games that sticks out to you here, Matt?
Well, I'm going to just do one collective effort here real quick that when I looked at the Fredericktown Windsor score, St. John R7 score, the Chaminade Hillsborough score, I did not see Jefferson getting beat by 41 points in this game. I didn't see Fredericktown getting their first win of the season over Windsor by 17 points. And I didn't really see Chaminade beating Hillsborough by 35. That collective just kind of caught me off guard. I think in the same vein though, Grandview getting beat by St. Vincent after they ring up 314 yards on the ground. Normally that would be a sign that you should come out with a victory in that game, but Poole had 137 and a TD, so did Walker. And I don't know, then this was a Grandview team that beat Herculaneum. And I didn't think they would have had like that big of a toe stubbing against the St. Vincent team.
Jeffrey.
I'm gonna say this, and it's not. I'm not defending Grandview in any situation here, but the St. Vincent game was homecoming night. That game wasn't scheduled to start till 7:20. With all the pomp and circumstance of homecoming and the dropping off the football with the helicopter and all this stuff down there in Perry County, that game didn't kick off till 7:40. And it's a long time for these guys to sit around and think about things on both teams, granted. But by the time that game started, it was 13-0 St. Vincent before Grandview even knew what hit them. And they came out, St. Vincent, to their credit, they came out strong. They passed the ball well. They really worked on the Eagles secondary. Brock Poole, as you mentioned, had a good game. A lot of those yards came in, the third and fourth quarters, in sort of cleanup roles there. But this Quad County Conference now is a mess, Matt.
Yeah, it definitely is. Last game I would like to talk about would be Northwest Parkway Central, just in the fact that Cohen Stark, when you're pulling his numbers up, he's usually having 250 yards rushing a game, 197. This week, very un-Cohen Starkish, 6 carries, 31, 7 of 9 passing, only 9 completions, or 9 attempts, 7 completions, 239, 3 TDs, and Marion Frazier, three of those receptions for 147 yards.
Wow.
And 2 DDs to go to boot. And in a game where you can get some underclassmen in, really the point I wanted to make with that whole game is 23 players had a tackle. And so
You love to see it.
you're doing something right.
Exactly. And I failed to ask Coach Gerling after Friday night on the post-game show how much of that game Cohen Stark actually played. And
Right.
and I haven't gone back and been able to look at that yet to find out. But let's talk about Amarian Frazier real quick and how he has come on as the season has progressed and his numbers keep accelerating. They have found a really great feature receiver and just another arrow in the quiver for Cohen Stark and Coach Gerling.
And again, I think we've said this about a few of the players on various teams that, even though you may not be on a team that throws a lot, you've got a guy like Amarian Frazier who's ready week after week, that whenever his number is called, he's productive. And you very rarely see the ball hit the turf whenever it's thrown his way. And, so even if Stark does throw kind of maybe a pass that's off, he, kind of polishes that up a little bit and makes it looks nice and shiny for his stat, at the end of the day. But yeah, another guy that kind of just runs under the radar that, every week you could make it the Cohen Stark show. He is what he is, but again, look forward to seeing him next year as well too. But right now, I think he's getting ready to help Northwest make a pretty deep run.
Matt, and just one more thing to piggyback on what you were talking about. And when you looked at the defensive stats and saw how many guys got involved and got tackles in the game, 3 quarterback sacks for the Lions in that game, all from 3 different players, which I thought was great. And Jeremiah Kleins, Grant Hannewinkle, and Jacob Hartle all contributing sacks in that game. So it was a team effort, and that those first line guys were happy and cheering on those guys that maybe don't get a lot of playing time to get into that game and have success.
Yeah, because you need the defensive side of the ball. If you're going to put up 62 points, that isn't all just because the offense sets you up. That can be turnovers, interceptions, giving you maybe a 10, 15-yard field to work with. So, yeah, so great job by the defense as well, too, up and down for the Northwest Lions.
Absolutely. We'll be back in just a little bit here with our player of the week.
Craving authentic Italian cuisine? Hi, this is Don Bollinger at the Pasta House Company in Festus. We're serving up happiness one plate at a time. From our made-to-order pasta dishes to our mouth-watering pizzas, everything is prepared with the finest ingredients. Try our fresh ground burgers, hearty lasagna, or our perfect appetizers. Happy hour every day with half-price pizzas and kids eat free every Sunday. Visit us at pastahouse.com to order online or for delivery on Highway A and Pounds Road, where it's always a great time.
It is now time for our player of the week this week, and we have on the line none other than the Logan Wilson from the Windsor Owls. Logan, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good. How about you?
Oh, excellent, man. Hey, great game there this week, and you had a couple of touchdowns, 200 yards, and even though it was a losing effort down there in Fredericktown, give us a little bit of insight on the game and a little bit of some of your thoughts on the game as well, on how things went.
Well, the energy was definitely there pregame. We were ready to go in. We were ready to just, in wing tee fashion, shove it down their throat, score, keep the ball away from them, get stops on defense, and we had a really tough first drive, a really good first drive, and then they had that scoop and score on the one. And that just stopped a little bit of our momentum. And then they had a lot of touchdowns in the air that we were having trouble stopping, and couldn't get it back together on defense, or we had some stalls on offensive drives too. But yeah, it was a heartbreaking loss.
I understand. Sometimes you stub your toe and you got to go back to the drawing board and, right the ship and fix the problems. And so it looks like you might be having a break to possibly do that this week. But before we talk about that real quick, I know that we talked a little bit here just before this about your thoughts and ideas on college. Tell us what you got going on here. Are you thinking about moving forward there into college and with football as well?
Yes, I want to play in the collegiate level. I do not know where I want to play yet. I have a couple small NAIA offers, but I just haven't decided where I want to go yet. I haven't found my home, so.
No, that's okay. You got a little bit of time. You got a little bit of time here. So coaches and scouts, you better take a look at this guy because he's the real deal and is consistent. So we've seen that every week. So I mean, there's been so many weeks that we're so close to choosing you as player of the week, and you get eked out by a quarterback that just blows things up or something like that. But this week's your week, so congratulations on that. But before we get you out of here real quick, you guys have Bayless this week. What's the game plan with Bayless?
Well, we haven't got together, talked to coach yet, but same as every week, jam it down their throats and score and keep the ball away from them, create opportunities for other people, and, go out there and dominate.
There you go. Keep it simple also. And simplicity sometimes is the key to success over time. So, Logan Wilson, we appreciate the time with you, and congratulations on being Player of the Week.
Thank you, sir.
Logan Wilson from the Windsor Owls. Welcome back, and it's time to check out our honorable mentions. They are as follows. Northwest, Somarian Frazier, 3 receptions, not receptions. It's receptions there, 147 yards, 2 TDs. Yes, my Lord, my teleprompter.
English.
That's my Herky English. There you go. Okay. Herculaneum, speaking of Herculaneum's defense holding Perryville to 13 points, 1 interception, 2 sacks, 8 points off of those turnovers. Nice job there, Herky defense. Festus's Parker Perry, 18 to 25, 254 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he probably should have been Player of the Week, but we don't normally give Player of the Week more than once a season, so that is why he is not our Player of the Week. Seckman's Mason Fowler, yes, that's Paige's brother, but it's probably going to end up being, instead of being Paige's brother, she's going to be Mason's sister here shortly. Mason Fowler there, 12 rushes, 104 yards, not 1, not 2, 3 touchdowns on the night. Great job there, Mason Fowler. And let's chat about maybe a few of these here, and let's go, Matt.
Well, I mean, since we're on the topic of Herculaneum, might as well just, keep hammering that nail into that hole that
and ring the bell.
RTB. The defensive effort to keep Perryville at bay was just as impressive as I think the last drive that Herculaneum had. They got the ball back with 7:05 left to go, and they were able to grind it out. And I think by design, not putting points up, because they literally ran the clock out the final 7 minutes plus. That I thought was just as impressive as their defense. Normally you'll hear announcers, they will say, like Herculaneum's holding on or clinging to a 16-30. I think they played that chess game not holding on. They played like they had a lead, and they just were not going to find a way to relinquish it. Mm-hmm. I think there's just a difference whenever you set it up those two ways. Herculaneum playing with a 16-13 lead as opposed to hanging on to it, because I don't think they were playing like they were looking to lose it.
Yeah. Jeffrey.
Mason Fowler coming on for Seckman, giving them another weapon. He didn't even get a touch in week 7. Week 8, he comes in and does what he does. Here we showed you on the graphic, and man, they've just got so many guys over there. It's like running back it's like right. The old Oklahoma days, and
But as we say, Jeff, when Coach Bear is going to put you in, or Coach X is going to put you in, and you may not be the first string guy, you might be the second, third string guy. When your number's called, if you don't perform, you can bet to a man and to a coach, you're not going back in for a while. So to see him and the numbers he put up whenever, Coach said, hey, you're going to be my guy this week. And you know what? I'm going to keep feeding you the heat. And that's what he did.
You've got 6, 7, 8 guys running the ball. What's that tell you about the offensive line and the job they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a program too, Jeff, as to that point. We've got enough guys that can carry the ball for us. And if you're going to get the Yemen share of the load, so you put the numbers up. So yeah, whenever I call you and you put up, you go back in, we keep giving you the ball.
There you go. That's a look at our honorable mentions. We'll be back with our week 8 preview. Week 9 preview. After Friday Night Blitz, check out the Friday Night Blitz postgame at 10 p.m. Our Friday Night Blitz announcers will catch up with coaches from around the area and grab some postgame interviews to cap off another Friday night football frenzy. That's the Friday Night Blitz post-game show at 10 p.m. on Livestream STL. We are back with the Week 9 schedule, and it is as follows. Not as many games here, but we do have 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 games in 2 days here. We're going to start with Thursday night football, Friday night football on a Thursday. I like that. Friday night blitz on a Thursday.
Tell me that we Livestream STL are covering almost a third of all the games in our region.
I like it.
This week.
You are correct, sir. You are correct. You are correct, sir. There we go. Crystal City is going to be taking on Grandview that Thursday night on Livestream STL. We'll have that live. DeSoto on Friday will be traveling to Herculaneum on Livestream STL. That'll be our Livestream STL game of the week. Oakville is at Northwest on Livestream STL2. Jackson is at Festus on Livestream STL3. Cuba is at Perryville. Jefferson at St. Vincent. Hillsboro at Poplar Bluff. Fox at Ladue. Seckman is at Webster. St. Pius X will travel to Valley Catholic. Have fun with that game. Pattonville at Eureka. And Bayless and Windsor. Gentlemen, let's take a look and dive into some of these games here. Dive into the first third here of our coverage here, and pick it. All I got to say is pick a game there, and we'll start with Jeff.
Well, Jeff's going to pick a game here, and I'm looking at games that have possible conference or district points implications, and there's several on this list. But I have to go with here in Week 9, DeSoto Herculaneum. Herculaneum could win that game and have it go an overall record of 66-3, even though DeSoto is not a conference game. That might give them enough points. It with all works out right for them to actually win the Quad County Conference, and we'll take a look at those standings here in a minute. But I think that's a really important game as far as the conference. And if you look at Herky and the district that they're in, really the goal here is to win the conference.
Well, you're right, and I think to counteract on that one was, I think, why I had said even in the broadcast that I think right now the best thing for Herky to have done was just throw a monkey wrench and everything by beating Perryville, and that's what they did. And now you see coming up now with that DeSoto Herculaneum game, it's just going to be another way for Herculaneum to throw a wrench in things, not just so much for the conference that they're aligned in, but implications on DeSoto as well too. So I totally agree with that pick as well too. You look at the Jackson Festus game. I mean, again, that's just points for points. But I think really, to me, though, the other intriguing game is going to be the Crystal City Grandview game. I just want to see how seasons come to a regular season end with those two teams, and just to see what the effort's going to be like, especially from Grandview after taking that punch to the chin last week by St. Vincent. So,
and Matt, and you guys are Herky guys, and I do work for R7. Do you think Herculaneum is going to be cheering on the Jefferson Blue Jays at St. Vincent this week?
I think we are.
If they can go down there and knock off St. Vincent somehow and bring St. Vincent's record to 5-4 and give them another conference loss, that's going to open up a path for Grandview and Herculaneum.
Yeah.
So very interesting. We'll talk about that here, like I said, in a minute. But those are the games I think that have the biggest implications overall. Jackson and Festus game, when I look at that, I wonder how much Coach Afadelaide is going to play his starters in that game. He pretty well has the district wrapped up the number 1 seed. So it'll be interesting to see if he decides to rest those guys, because they would end up with a bye week getting 2 weeks rest if he has some guys that are dinged up, or on the other hand, he doesn't want to risk getting injured for that state run.
I've been thinking about that ever since you brought that up too, Jeff, and to where it's like, how long do we need to rest before we're actually going cold? That,
Exactly.
After having almost 3 weeks off after your final game ends, to almost be playing 3 weeks later, to where it's like, okay, how do we get the juices flowing again?
Right.
But I also understand the healing point too, and that's, I guess, literally and figuratively, that's why you make the big bucks as the head coach. That's Coach Afadale's to figure that out. I mean, I agree, not getting hurt, but how cold will my players be if I let them sit for way too long?
Exactly. There's always those two conflicting philosophies of how to handle things there, and the answer at the end of the day might be a little mixture of both for Coach O, as far as what it wants to do against admittedly a very physical Jackson squad.
I think of the games that we're not doing, at least on my end. I want to be a fly on the wall for that Valley Catholic St. Pius game because I think to me this is going to be the measuring stick of Class 2 teams, Class 2, Class 3, I want to see what Cody Shaver does against Valley. And that's pretty much it. I want to see how that plays out.
Excellent.
There you go. Let's take a look into some of our standings right now at this point. And I know we did not, touch on week 8 or week 9 like we'd like to, but there's a reason behind that. So we're going to jump in and dive in here to see the actual standings and the matchups here per class for districts. But, our Mississippi area, not blue, but red, it's the red standings. The Post Dispatch has that incorrectly, but that's what this looks like right now. Festus 7-1, DeSoto 4-4, Hillsboro 4-4, Windsor 3-5, North County 2-6. And, you guys kind of mentioned Festus has this all wrapped up and ready to rock and roll here. And, who will they rest? That's going to be the question. But any of these other teams here that you're taking a look at that you think could have a deep run here?
Well, really, you're just looking at DeSoto and Hillsboro as far as I'm concerned. I believe that Windsor should win their game against Bayless, but that with that DeSoto and Hillsboro, as we'll look here in a minute, might have some district standing implications as far as what they could do. DeSoto can come in and we'll see, which DeSoto team will show up this week, man, as we talked about off the air.
Yep.
And, if they're ready to go against Herky and they put a good showing out and they become 5-4, Hillsboro should beat Poplar Bluff 2-6, even though they have to go on the road to Poplar Bluff. So right now, as we'll see here in a minute, Hillsboro is ahead of them in the standings. Both teams, either way, should host a first-round playoff game. But as far as the conference and the district go, at this time, the Tigers have both of those sewn up.
Yeah, and then that's what I want to see too is, so how big of a wrench would it be if Herculaneum beats DeSoto this coming Friday? Because I think to me it's a bigger game for DeSoto to win as opposed for Herculaneum to lose.
Exactly.
Well, let's take a look at that.
Yeah. Why not? Here's the Quad County standings here. Perryville 5-3, St. Vincent 5-3, Grandview 5-3, Herculaneum 5-3. Who would have ever thought? Who would have never thought? Jefferson 4-4, Cuba 1-7, Bayless 1-7, and at this point, just give me a coin and we'll just flip for who wins because seriously, this could go any direction at this point.
Well, Ray, if you could toss that back up there for a minute, let's
Sure.
talk about this quad conference because you've got several teams. You've got one team that's 4-1, St. Vincent. You've got in the conference, Grandview and Herky tied at 4-2. If St. Vincent beats Jefferson, they will move to 5-1. Okay. So it could be really interesting to see here, but to have four teams, at 5-3 overall, great parity this year in the Quad County Conference. This is great for everybody. I do stuff at R7, and even though, 4-4 this year, we've had years where R7 has been dominant, and when you're beating teams by multiple touchdowns and big scores, that doesn't benefit anybody, and it doesn't benefit Jefferson. To have the conference this competitive this year is good for all of these teams.
Yeah, it makes you work week after week when you're putting the pads up. Where back in the day, whenever we'd play a Hillsboro, play a Festus, like, oh, thank God we get to play St. Pius, we get to play DeSoto. You fast forward to the now and to that point, which is, when you put the pads on now, you don't have really a week. You can take a week off per se to where, okay, I know I'm going to get a W this week. You got to buckle them up every week, and that's what you're finding out.
Exactly. And Windsor found out against Fredericktown last week too.
Yeah.
A team that had gone winless this year. So,
Can't take anybody lightly.
Can't take anybody lightly, and it's good if you're a fan of high school football in our area. You've got to be loving it.
Absolutely. Our last set of standings here, we'll take a look at the Suburban Conference Orange Pool. Northwest on top there, 7-1. Seckman right behind them, 6-2. Oakville 6-2. Webster 3-4. Melville 2-6. Parkway South 1-7. Hazelwood West 0-8. That bottom group there, their struggle. You can see it. It's like as soon as you see that 6-2 to drop off 3-4, that is just an absolute struggle bus for all those bottom four teams there.
3-21 collectively for the bottom three.
Youch.
Well,
Wow.
it's important now. Northwest has a huge game hosting Oakville this week, who's 6-2 on this season. Northwest has to win that game to have a tie with Seckman for the conference championship.
Does Seckman get the tiebreaker because they beat Northwest?
Yes, but a lot of times they don't look at that as a tiebreaker conference-wise in high school sports. They'll probably give them a share of it, but Northwest, needs to win that game if the conference title is important. I know last year the most important thing, the step was getting into those district playoffs, hosting a home game. But this year, I'm sure that the Lions have their sights set a little higher, Matt.
I think that's because of the success of that season last year and doing those little things to where you see some of these teams where it's like we were going to take it play by play. This was we've got a couple stepping stone kind of things where like just hosting or having a playoff game
Right.
was a checkbox item. Now it's like they got the taste of that and what it took to get there. And you see, I don't think it was just a baby step. This was a huge leap this year for that program to get, I'm going to say, put them back on the map because it's been a while since Northwest football was relevant. And because it was one of those teams where if you saw Northwest on your schedule, you're like, yes,
Exactly.
not so much anymore.
They are not at the kiddie table of Thanksgiving. They've
They're not.
graduated to the adult table.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's take a dive in here to our districts as well. Each one of these is our class and district numbers here. So class 1, district 2, you see Grandview, Crystal City, Van Far, Veritas, and Louisiana. And, Grandview right now, obviously just kind of the leader of the pack here. Crystal City, and this matchup Thursday night, I think has huge implications on things, even though I don't think Crystal City has a way at all to, jump over the top of Grandview unless they win just like by 40 or 50 points.
I think this game's more of a reflection of if Crystal City loses and your Van Fars and your Veritas Christian wins, Crystal City could go from hosting a playoff game to being on the road for a playoff game.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there some very, very close district point totals there between Crystal City, Van Far, and Veritas Christian. 6 points, a little less than 6 points separate all three. So Matt's absolutely correct. Crystal City has to have a good showing here Thursday night if they want to make sure and control their own destiny as far as hosting that first week game against Louisiana.
And as it sits right now, gentlemen, I mean, potentially, like even from that last slide, if things just play out even, you've got Grandview hosting a playoff, or they'll have the bye week.
They have the bye week.
You'll have Crystal City hosting a playoff game. You could potentially, you'll have Festus with a bye week, but you've got your Hillsboro, Windsors, DeSoto's possibly looking, to host playoff games as well too. So a lot of love in the area could be going around here if things play out as far as, at least round 1 games would go.
Exactly.
Let's take a look at class 2. Class 2, District 1, St. Pius on the top there, 4-4. Because of the points, boy, not by much there underneath Caruthersville.
Correct.
You have St. Vincent, you have Jefferson in there, New Madrid County Central, Kelly, and East Prairie. And again, once you see that past that 5-3 mark there, kind of drops down a little bit. But Pius right there, they kind of control their own destiny. And obviously, this week, if they even fare well against Valley Catholic, that's going to make them look even better going into the first round of districts.
No, yeah. Oh, sorry. Just go ahead.
If they can keep from getting blown out
Right.
from at Valley and have a good showing there, they're playing up, but then again, so is Caruthersville this week. So it's kind of the same thing coming out. If Caruthersville gets blown out in their game, they might not be able to be overcome St. Pius. There's you see less than half a point almost separate the two to see who's going to get that first round bye. This week you've got St. Vincent and Jefferson going at it. Can Jefferson, if they go to St. Vincent and beat the Indians, will they leapfrog them into the number 3 spot there overall? At this time,
you would think most likely.
you think most likely that, which would give actually both those schools either way should host the first round. Don't quote me on that. I'm knocking wood a little bit as we speak here, but both of those teams should host a first round game. So again, plenty of action. But let's look at the class, the bigger class.
Yeah,
here.
Class 3. This is a tough one here. You've got Valley Catholic on top, 8-0. Leading the way there, Live for Life, St. Genevieve, Herculaneum, John Burroughs, Normandy, and Lutheran South. And boy, oh boy, they've got that big jump there too. Again, once you get past Herky there, you've got John Burroughs at 4-4, Normandy at 1-6, Lutheran South 2-6. And man, I tell you what, Valley Catholic, it's to me, it's their district to lose.
Oh yeah.
Live for Life could be one of those teams that could give them some, troubles, but I think, Valley Catholic definitely should cruise this particular Class 3 District 2.
I think this particular graphic now is once again about Herculaneum throwing wrenches into things, because looking at this, if they beat DeSoto, say by more than 13 points, you've got a Class 3 team beating a Class 4 team. St. Genevieve, if they stub their toe, that's why I say you could potentially now be looking at Herculaneum hosting a playoff game with the bye week for Valley.
I tell you what, when we talked before about Herculaneum and their conference hopes, when you try to measure your season and put forth goals for Herky, especially over some of the other schools, winning that conference title would mean so much, because as we showed you on that graphic, the district that Herculaneum is in is an absolute boy. I don't.
That's a gauntlet.
It is a gauntlet, Matt, and I don't see how just about any school, if any other schools in the Quad County Conference was in that district, they wouldn't be able to fare any better than what Herky's got there with Live for Life and Valley and all of those.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look again here at wrong one. Class 4 District 1 there, Festus, Hillsborough, Perryville, DeSoto, Sikeston, North County, Windsor. And, that can be an interesting, how things fare here.
Exactly.
Friday night can change the look of this drastically. It just takes a stub of toe from Hillsborough or a stub of toe of DeSoto or somebody like that to where all of a sudden they're taking a look, oh my gosh, hey, I might not actually be hosting, but should be an interesting class and district here.
So that's why I said that goes back to the big wrench that Herculaneum threw in this thing last week, where they beat Perryville, and you see the muck that they're stuck in right now, because Hillsborough, if they stub their toe this week, and DeSoto, again, if they do a thing where they beat Herculaneum by, say, 20 plus points, granted that you got a Class 4 team now that's beating a Class 3. I don't really know what that does to your power level in the ranking, since you're playing a lower class team. But I think anything that affects these numbers has got to be like a 13-point plus win by DeSoto to really throw a wrench in things if Hillsborough and Perryville decide to stub their toe this week as well too. So I think that's where that math on that Herculaneum win over Perryville last week was just huge.
Yeah, I think looking at these games, the upcoming games for those 3 teams that are behind Festus there this week, you'd really have to have an upset by one of these teams to really throw a wrench in. Perryville kind of in the driver's seat from where they're at, because they're playing Cuba at home. Cuba's 1-7 on the season. Hillsborough is at Poplar Bluff. Really, DeSoto, they could beat Herky, but they're playing down, so they'd have to beat them by a significant amount to gain a lot more points.
I wonder what a wrench would be if Cuba would just forfeit the game, because I think they only get like the 13 points for just the win. And because truly, I think Cuba could throw a wrench in things as well, too, because I was thinking about that. If Cuba decides to forfeit the game, that's really not going to help Perryville in any capacity.
And that's something, let's throw that out to the crowd. If we have any athletic directors, any coaches that are watching this tonight, put a note down in the comments and let us know how that would affect the point total for these district games. Cuba last week, they had told Baylor,
Bayless.
Bayless. Yeah. Yeah.
Bayless,
Baylor.
Baylor, Pemberton, Bayless, sorry. But when Bayless went down there last week, they told them they would have to reevaluate things at halftime because they had so few players to play. They weren't sure if they could make it through the whole game. And in this particular case for Cuba, it worked out because they were able to beat Bayless and win their first game of the season. But how does that bode next week against Perryville? We don't know yet.
Right.
So that's a really good point to bring up, Matt.
Absolutely. Our last district here is Class 6 District 1. Jackson in the driver's seat here. Northwest right behind him at 7-1. Oakville 6-2. Seckman 6-2. Lindbergh just we'll see you next season. I would think at this point for Lindbergh. Unfortunately, they're your Lindbergh Flyers there, Jeffrey.
That's all right. They're just laying in wait for next year.
There you go. I like it.
This is, again, another graphic that's just sneaky looking at it that, okay, let's just say in theory, Festus beats Jackson. That, you're beating a team 2 classes up. What happens to Jackson's point ranking if Northwest reels off a win against Oakville? And, I mean, could they have a chance of taking this district?
Boy, I don't know, Matt, at this point.
I mean, I know it's just speculation, but you're only talking like a 4-point differential right now. And if Jackson stubs their toe against a team 2 classes below them, I'm sure they're not going to get very much in the way of points. And if they don't beat them by 13.
Northwest Oakville are playing the same size schools. Unfortunately for Seckman, they are playing down next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, movement in there between. I see possible movement in there between Oakville and Northwest, depending on who wins that game. I don't know if it's going to be enough to meet Jackson. I'm not sure Jackson is concerned whether they have a bye or they play in week 1 because Jackson's Jackson and they're just going to try to steamroll everybody. It's their world and we're just living in it.
Right. I again, just still another thing just to throw out there because, I mean, you're not talking, yes, it is Jackson's to lose, and yes, they've probably got this thing sealed up, but if they just stub their toe against Festus and have an oopsie moment and Northwest pulls out a win, like what happens to that?
Everybody wear their steel-toed boots this week so to prevent the toe stubbing.
Yes.
Toe stubbing.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for Upon Further Review. Don't forget to check out all of our games on livestreamstl.tv and our Roku app. Just search the words Livestream STL on Roku. You can download that app for free. And we will be out again for the quadruple header, a single game Thursday, double header or triple header, triple header on Friday night. So check all those out on livestreamstl.tv. For all of us here at Livestream STL and Upon Further Review, thank you for watching tonight's program.
Be kind to one another.
Be a good human.
Thanks for watching today's broadcast. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without the express written consent of Livestream STL is strictly prohibited.